At 82, I've gathered decades of wisdom, and yet one choice continues to weigh heavily on my heart: moving into a nursing facility. At the time, it felt like the sensible, even necessary decision. Family members, well-intentioned though they were, assured me that this transition would mean enhanced care, improved safety, and a more comfortable lifestyle. I trusted their judgment and believed that I'd finally receive the support I needed. But once I stepped through those doors, the reality was far removed from the promises I'd been given. If you're contemplating this option for yourself or a loved one, please listen closely. Today, I'm sharing 6 painful lessons I wish someone had told me before I made this irreversible choice. Believe me, this isn't simply about convenience. It's about the deep transformative impact a nursing facility has on every aspect of your life. And once you cross that threshold, reclaiming your old way of living is far more complicated than you might imagine. Stay with me, because each of these insights could be vital in guiding your decision. Regret 1. The erosion of independence. Before I made the move, I prided myself on the little freedoms that stitched together my daily life. I could decide when to rise with the sun, choose to brew my own cup of coffee, and set my own pace for the day. Even small actions like taking an impromptu walk in the park or rearranging a few personal items around the house were powerful reminders of my self-sufficiency. But as soon as I settled into the facility, I quickly discovered that my choices were no longer my own. Every day was dictated by a schedule meticulously designed by someone else. Breakfast wasn't a leisurely morning ritual, but a predetermined event, regardless of whether my appetite had stirred. Evening routines were imposed, and if I felt the urge to step outside for a moment of solitude, I found myself burdened with waiting for permission or the assistance of a caregiver. The little decisions that once painted my day with spontaneity had been replaced by a rigid framework, a framework that left little room for the personal touches that made me feel alive. I still recall my first morning there. I awoke in a sterile room with a bed that didn't feel like mine, surrounded by decor that, at best, was a faint echo of my former home. The books, photographs, and cherished keepsakes that once filled my space were either lost or replaced with institutional substitutes. It was in that moment that the magnitude of my loss struck me. I was no longer the master of my own time. My independence, that delicate thread that had woven through the fabric of my life, was slipping away. And once it's gone, no amount of nostalgia can bring it back. Regret 2. The haunting isolation of being forgotten. I'd always believed that my family would remain my steadfast anchor, visiting regularly and keeping me connected to the outside world. In the beginning, their presence did bring a measure of comfort. My daughter's weekly visits, the sporadic phone calls, and even the occasional drop-by from my grandchildren reassured me that I was still a vital part of the family circle. Yet, as time wore on, these interactions began to dwindle. It started subtly at first. My daughter, who once made the effort to sit with me over a home-cooked meal, began to rely solely on phone conversations. My grandchildren, once enthusiastic about weekend outings, found themselves tangled in the busyness of their own lives. Even the promise of holiday gatherings gradually faded into empty assurances. I began to feel like a forgotten page in a well-thumbed book. There were days I'd sit by the window, watching the world outside continue its relentless pace, while inside, time moved with a sluggish, unfeeling rhythm. In the communal dining hall, I'd see other residents scanning the doorway, hoping that today might be the day someone from home would appear. The sense of being left behind, even if not intentional, was deeply painful. I grappled with the bitter truth that no matter how much love there was, the distance created by the facility's walls had a way of dimming that connection. If you're facing a similar decision, ask yourself if you're prepared to risk this subtle, creeping loneliness. The reality is, even the most loving family can become less present when life's demands take over. And when you're not there to witness every day, it's easy for the world outside to forget you exist. Regret 3. The diminishing sense of purpose. In the comfort of my own home, purpose wasn't something abstract. It was woven into every routine, every small task that gave structure to my day. I found joy in tending to my garden, taking care of my beloved pets, and even in the simple act of organizing my collection of old letters and photographs. These daily rituals didn't merely fill the hours. They affirmed that my life still held meaning. But in the facility, the responsibilities that once fueled my spirit were taken away. Meals were prepared and served without any input from me. Housekeeping was handled by staff, leaving me without the comforting familiarity of daily chores. Over time, those little tasks that had given me a reason to get out of bed evaporated into nothingness. Initially, I welcomed the prospect of fewer responsibilities, thinking I'd finally have time to relax. However, as the days turned into weeks, I began to feel an unsettling void. My once busy mind and hands became idle, and the activities that used to provide a sense of accomplishment were replaced by monotonous routines. I observed others around me who had lost their drive. A retired handyman who once built beautiful furniture, now sitting silently with no projects to tackle. A former teacher who'd inspired countless students, now struggling to find meaning in a repetitive schedule. This loss of purpose wasn't just about idleness. It was about feeling irrelevant, as if my skills, passions, and dreams had all been carefully boxed away, never to be revisited. When you're not engaged in the work or hobbies that define you, a deep-seated emptiness sets in, a hollowness that no external comfort can fill. If you value the little sparks of purpose that ignite your day, think long and hard about the sacrifices you might be making. Regret 4. The unanticipated. Toll on my health before making the move, I took pride in managing my own health. I wasn't a marathon runner, but I valued the simple act of keeping active. Daily walks, stretching exercises, and even the occasional light gardening provided a rhythm to my physical well-being. Life had its routines, and I played my part in keeping my body in motion. The transition to the facility, however, brought about unforeseen changes. With meals prepared for me, with all tasks designed for maximum ease, I gradually found myself doing less and less. Initially, the reduction in daily exertion seemed like a relief. After all, who wouldn't welcome a life free of the strains of cooking, cleaning, or even the occasional strenuous walk? But the irony soon became apparent. The less I pushed myself, the more rapidly my strength began to decline. I watched in quiet despair as my legs, once reliable and strong, started to stiffen. Tasks that had once been second nature, standing up, moving from one room to another, or simply walking down the hallway, became laborious challenges. It wasn't just me. I witnessed the same gradual weakening in others. A sprightly neighbor who had arrived full of life eventually found herself dependent on a walker, then a wheelchair. It became painfully clear that while the facility provided comfort and safety, it also fostered an environment where physical decline was almost inevitable. In our quest for ease, we sometimes sacrifice the very actions that keep our bodies resilient. My regret deepened as I realized that by surrendering the daily habits that kept me active, I was unwittingly setting the stage for a faster deterioration of my physical self. So if you're weighing this option, ask yourself, will the comforts of routine care outweigh the necessity of keeping your body moving and strong? Regret 5. The loss of privacy and dignity. Privacy is a luxury I once took for granted. In my own home, I had a sanctuary where I could retreat, be alone, and maintain the little rituals that affirmed my dignity. There was a profound comfort in knowing that my personal space was exactly that, personal. Yet, in a nursing facility, that sense of individuality is often compromised from the moment you enter. From the very first day, I was made aware that my life was now subject to constant oversight. There were frequent room checks, scheduled visits by care staff, and an array of protocols that left little room for personal discretion. Simple acts like dressing in the morning or using the restroom lost the intimacy of privacy. Instead, they became tasks performed under the watchful eyes of those tasked with my care. One of the most jarring moments came during my initial week, when I attempted to get ready on my own. I discovered that even my choice of clothing was dictated by a uniformity of care that left little room for personal expression. It wasn't merely about the clothes. It was about the underlying loss of control. I no longer had the freedom to decide how I wanted to present myself, how I wanted to feel in my own skin. Sharing a room with someone you didn't choose compounded the sense of intrusion. While I was fortunate to have a considerate roommate, many residents weren't so lucky. The lack of privacy extended to shared bathrooms, dining areas, and even recreational spaces, where the barrier between personal and communal life became increasingly blurred. The dignified independence I had known for so long was gradually replaced by an institutional routine where my individuality was overshadowed by the needs of the facility. For anyone considering this path, it's crucial to understand that while a nursing home might offer physical security, it also demands a profound concession of the privacy and dignity you've cherished your entire life. Once that personal space is lost, reclaiming it becomes an uphill battle. A battle that leaves you longing for the days when your home was a true extension of yourself. Regret 6. The unseen difficulty of reversing course. When I first contemplated the move, I reassured myself that this was just a temporary arrangement, a trial period to see if the facility could indeed offer a better quality of life. I clung to the hope that if things didn't work out, I could simply return home, regain my independence, and restore the life I once knew. But nothing could have prepared me for the reality of leaving once you've settled in. At first, the idea of leaving seemed straightforward. I imagined that if I felt confined or if the environment became too stifling, I could pack up my belongings and head back to the familiarity of my own house. However, the longer I stayed, the more complicated this decision became. The facility, once a place of temporary respite, gradually morphed into my entire world. Maintaining my old home from afar proved challenging. I began to see changes taking place. A house once filled with my personal touches was now being tidied up, sometimes even repurposed by my well-meaning family. Even more disconcerting was the toll the facility took on my physical capabilities. The gradual loss of strength and the increasing dependency on assistance made the prospect of living independently an ever-distant dream. I found myself trapped by circumstances I hadn't fully anticipated. Friends and neighbors who once spoke of returning home recounted similar struggles, stories of homes being sold or altered beyond recognition, of finances depleted by the costs of care, and of dreams quietly fading away as the possibility of a return became ever more remote. The most disheartening realization was that the longer you live within these walls, the more you become intertwined with the facility's system. The routines, the relationships with staff, the very environment itself start to define who you are. And when that happens, reclaiming your old life, with all its independent vibrancy, is no longer a simple matter of choice. It becomes an arduous process filled with emotional and logistical barriers. If you're standing on the precipice of this decision, consider deeply whether you're ready to risk a situation where leaving is not as simple as you once imagined. Once you integrate into this system, the process of extricating yourself becomes a monumental challenge, one that often leaves you feeling trapped, with the life you once knew slipping further away each day. Final reflections. A life forever changed. Looking back over the years, I do not regret growing older. I cherish the experiences, the memories, and the lessons learned along the way. However, I cannot undo the decision that has cost me so much more than I ever anticipated. Moving into the nursing facility robbed me of my independence, left me feeling isolated, drained my sense of purpose, and ushered in a rapid decline in my health. It also forced me to surrender the privacy and dignity I had always held dear, and once I crossed that threshold, I discovered that returning to my old way of life was far more complex than I had ever imagined. This isn't to say that nursing facilities are inherently wrong. For many individuals who require round-the-clock care, these institutions provide a necessary service, a safe harbor in times of vulnerability. But if you are weighing this option, I urge you to consider what you might be giving up in the process. Ask yourself, is the ease of routine care worth the gradual erosion of the freedoms and joys that have defined your life? Will the convenience of scheduled meals and managed care outweigh the daily satisfaction of making your own choices, however small they may be? Before you decide, take a moment to reflect on the life you've built. Think about the simple pleasures: your morning walk, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, the quiet moments of solitude that let you be yourself. These might seem trivial, but they are the very essence of what makes life uniquely yours. Don't let the promise of safety or the assurance of constant care obscure the importance of retaining your individuality. If I could speak to my younger self one more time, I would say, hold on to your independence. Fight for the little freedoms that make each day worth living. Look for ways to get the help you need without sacrificing the very things that define you. And to anyone out there facing this critical decision, I offer the same heartfelt advice. Weigh your options carefully and do not let convenience blind you to the reality of what you might lose. Remember, the life you live today, filled with your own choices, routines, and passions, is irreplaceable. Once you give it up, reclaiming it may prove to be one of the hardest battles you'll ever face. So please, take the time to consider every angle. Talk to your family, consult with professionals, and most importantly, listen to your own heart. I want to thank you for joining me as I share these hard truths. I hope my experiences can serve as a beacon of caution for those at the crossroads of this decision. Your life, with all its imperfections and individual quirks, is a treasure that deserves to be nurtured and preserved. If you found these reflections valuable, please let me know by commenting below. Share your own experiences or simply tell me that you're here and listening. Your feedback not only encourages me, but also helps build a community where we can support one another in making the best decisions for our futures. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to this channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support makes it possible for me to continue sharing these stories that I hope will inspire and guide you in your own journey. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I look forward to reading your comments and engaging with you. Let's continue this conversation, and together, let's find the courage to choose lives that honor our individuality and freedom. Stay strong, and remember, your independence is worth fighting for.